But fast forward these days, you can get a 3D printer $600,000. So I got myself a resin printer.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Hardwood Rod Podcast, where we talk about your craft and the culture. This week, I'm excited to bring on 3D animator Oscar Torres out of North Carolina. We're going to touch base on how he got started with 3D animation. Plus, something I'm excited to talk about is 3D printing. We're touching base on all of that, so stay locked in. Hey, what's up, guys? And we are back. And today we got a pretty cool guest. We got a 3D animator. So, Oscar, welcome to the podcast.
I'm great, man. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. We're kind of working on some stuff, you and I, on some projects, but I wanted to kind of touch base with you a little bit and kind of pick your brain on, your workflow, where you kind of got your passion as far as 3D animation and some of the other projects you've been working on. But before we kind of dive into that, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a native-born New Yorker. I've lived in New York most of my life, but I wound up going to school at Full Sail in Winter Park, Florida,
Oh, okay.
several years back. It's an intense school. Yeah, I mean, even before that, I was doing 3D animation on my own, but I was using more hobbyist software, and from there, I kind of graduated from software to software, and I've always wanted to learn Maya. And back then, you had to have, like the Silicon graphics, the Octane workstations, but you know, luckily Microsoft changed all that within 2000s, so you were able to have a seed of Maya and on a 3D computer in your house, so you'd be able to run it and work with it. But long story short, I was always into 3D and animation, and I got in. What interested me back then was, like, I don't know if you guys remember, but they used to air like a version of Voltron back then.
Right.
There was a 3D version of Voltron, and then I got to see, like, mainframe Spider-Man and Beast Wars at that time, and
Oh
I was like, man,
man,
I want to
yeah,
do
that's
that.
the Beast Wars was my show, man.
Yeah. I was like, damn, I want to learn how to do that. So I would, like, scour the internet. Back then there wasn't that much stuff. There was only like Studio Max and occasional things here and there. But one of my uncles, he introduced me to one of his buddies. He worked in graphic design. That's when he said, "Hey, you got to start learning Softimage or Maya or something, and go from there." Since then, at that time, I started learning, the Windows interface, and I started learning Photoshop, and that's when I wound up, scrounging up some money at the time to get a seat to get into Full Sail. And I worked at one of my buddies, a buddy of mine. We worked at a fish market for a Christmas. So we worked
In
two
Florida,
weeks
in
straight.
Florida.
In, no, this was in New
Oh,
York.
got
This
it,
was in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, before I went to
got it.
Florida. So I worked crazy hours, 10, 12, 13-hour shifts at a fish market during the holidays, and I was able to buy my seat in Florida for Full Sail to purchase the seat, so they won't fill it up, because they get filled up really quick.
Right. What year was this? Because I remember kind of like 10 years ago, I believe, or maybe like 12, and Full Sail. Because I kept on seeing it on like YouTube, and I used to watch this show called Film Riot. I don't know if you remember that on YouTube. Um,
Oh wow,
and they used to
I never got to see
they
that.
used to advertise this Full Sail University, and I think they have some online courses too. But uh, it's funny enough where, like, at the time, I even kind of considered doing something like that. But going back to it, what year was it when you got into Full Sail?
Oh man, it was around 2005. I want to go into
Oh,
2005.
okay, so they've been around for a bit then.
Yeah, they've been around even longer, because when we went in, the one of the earlier classes, they were like the bridge keepers, the gatekeepers. Um, he was explaining how Full Sail started out, where I think it was a trailer, and it was even smaller, that they were starting to teach classes, graphic design, smaller stuff, and they eventually started scaffolding. to bigger classes, and their main moneymaker was show pro and sound engineering. Those
Mm.
guys, their classes were like, I mean, our classes were crazy, but theirs were rough because there's so many people coming in for that, for the sound engineering and film, where the classes, like, let's say you'll be in class, like, my first class would be 6:23 p.m. and I'll leave, around 10, and then I'll have to come back home, and my lab will be like 2 in the morning,
What?
from 2 to 6 in the morning. So the sound guys, they had it really rough. Like, the school is like, um fast paced and intense. Like, every week you get an exam. So on top of the exams that you have to study for, you got classes that you got to go to. You gotta go to the labs and do what you got to do with the labs. And a lot of those kids, some kids, they would, when you would enter full sail, the first speech that they will give you, like, guys, if you have any significant others, or if you have if you come here with the mindset that you're gonna fool around, you're not gonna last. So you see these kids, thinking that they're gonna do it, but they start dropping out like flies.
Right, right. You see, well, you start seeing the pattern, and then, like, I mean, it sounds like they were real strict, but as far as like you know, they told you up front, hey, this is gonna be straightforward, and if you think that you're gonna be kind of, just like a regular college, just kind of skipping
Yeah.
classes, you're not gonna make it.
Yeah, you're not gonna slide by. Here you got to be ultra focused. You got to be. It's kind of like you said. You got to have the passion for it, and you're gonna have late nights, and you're gonna be working from morning to night every day, and you'll probably have like Saturdays, maybe an hour, or Sundays. At the time, you would have just a couple hours to yourself, really, because even on the weekends you were doing your homework, you were doing your your research for whatever project you had, and you had to study for tests as well. It's a good school though. I enjoyed it. It was tough as nails, but it was really good.
Interesting. Yeah. So, going from when you started at Full Sail, and earning your way, I guess, right? Working in the fish market. Um, what was life like, in like growing up in New York, as far as you know being you know an artist in the particular field? Was there like was there any competition in that area before going
Oh
to
man.
Florida?
Um, Going to Florida, I found out there was more because when I was in New York, I was by myself. I mean, nobody I knew was working with 3D, and if they were doing like stuff for like architectural in the area of AutoCAD and things like that, but they weren't using it in the sense of entertainment.
Got it.
I ran into at the time I was going to a church near where I lived, and one of the guys there, he had loaned me a seat of, at the time it was called Ray Dream Studio.
Mm.
So he had loaned me a seat of that, a license of that, and then I started learning there. But pretty much I was on my own most of the time. The I dabble here and there in Painter and Photoshop, and at the time, what is it? Animate now it's called, but at the time it was called Flash
Oh
MX,
yeah, I
2004.
remember that.
Yeah, but it was nice growing up in New York. The only thing is, like, not too many people were into that. A lot of people were into other things, like playing football, things like that outside, and so you hang out with your friends here and there, and then I would come back home and race to start, working on the software and learning it. Because at the time I had ideas, I would draw, and little by little I was learning tons and tons of workflows as I was working with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you brought up a great point as far as people not being into that. I feel like now, especially with social media and having everything kind of pretty much on your in your pocket, right? I feel like people have more access to it, and it brings up another question where, you know, fast forward to now, and if you were in the same position as far as going to Full Sail, would you consider maybe um, not going to school versus like just learning? Because like the question, right? Like, is it worth it, or can I learn it myself now that we have all these like resources online?
Yeah, these days it's so different. These days you got guys like this one guy, I forgot his name, I started following. He worked at ILM. And it's only now that that there's tons more stuff out there. Like YouTube back then was they were just putting here and there bites of music, little animations of old shows, but now people are using it like to make their brand, their teaching, their platform. So it depends. I mean, you would have to be serious. If you're really serious about doing it, then you can learn on your own, and it'll probably be better because the student loans are insane. And it's funny because you have all these loans, people get bailouts for this, bailouts for that. But if you look at it, student loans, the government won't forgive. That's the one they won't forgive. So it's kind of shocking. So if people are serious and they're heading towards this stuff, I would recommend um, not getting into student loans and finding a couple places to learn this stuff. Like you can follow somebody. Like there's these two guys right now. They're called Flip Normals. They work in the film industry and they give a lot of background on their film work and their workflows, and they teach, and they have a platform where you could purchase tutorials. So yeah, these days you can do it without getting into the without having to get a degree, especially now with this pandemic where people are leaving work, and there's a big influx of people just quitting. So now there's an abundance of 3D jobs, and especially remote. Even now, you and I, we work together. You work in California, you live out there. I work and live in North Carolina, and we're working and doing our work. And it feels like the old days where you're working with a team, you go over projects, you meet up, have meetings, and move forward.
Yeah. So, talking about like all the stuff from back then, right? It's easier to look back and say, man, like nowadays they got it easier, but I feel like now there's so many options and so much, I would say, not competition, but saturation as far as what people can do and like the artist, which is a good thing. But at the same time, I feel like as a creator is like the question is, how do you stand out, right? Or how does your work stand out, right? In this world
That's
where
true.
you see it every day, you're seeing these things pop up on your phone, and how do you deal with maybe like standing out from the crowd sometimes, especially like you said, right? We're working remote. There's not like you walk into an office, you could show somebody your portfolio, right? But nowadays you could just send them a link. But what's some of your tactics as far as like now trying to like stand out and like as far as being a 3D animator?
Over the years, I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of different industries in 3D because it has a lot of facets. So one of the jobs that I had when I had graduated from school was working with an artist. He lived in Park Slope area, Brooklyn.
Mm.
Um, he was an artist. He introduced me to 3D fabrication. So this guy had scanners. This guy had all. He eventually purchased a 5-axis machine, which they would use to make airplane parts. So he would use this to fabricate his artwork,
Can you
and from there, that's
can you
how.
explain what that means, 3D fabrication, for the audience?
Yeah, you use 3D, several different type of technologies to create an object. So let's say you have like a Fisher Price scooter. So they use a different type of technology, not the stuff that's in the entertainment industry. It's called NURBS.
Mm.
It's math based, to create shapes, and they would use that to have the machine, which has these drills, it has drill bits, and it follows the contours of the 3D model. But the thing is, it's out of like either wood, excuse me, or metal. So carve that thing out of a block of metal based on the 3D object.
Wow.
So that's one way I was able to stand out from the crowd. I deal with 3D printing on my own.
Yeah, that was I was gonna mention that 3D printing, right? So that's pretty much what it is, right?
Yeah, and over the years, I mean, when I was working with him back then, it was 2009. I would farm out my work to a company in California. I forget what they were called, but over the years, technology got better. I mean, at the time, the cheapest desktop 3D printer you can get was $10,000.
Mm,
You know, back then it's 2009. If you had a, companies were doing that. They'd have like this machine. It was pretty big, um, and it 3D print right there. It was printing FDM technology where it heats up plastic and it uses like a roll, and each company uses their own thickness of plastic. Some of them are 2.3 millimeters thick. At the time, there was before MakerBot came out and it was big. But fast forward these days, you can get a 3D printer for like $600,000. So I got myself a resin printer, and that's new technology because they what is it, SLS? They use SLS in the mainstream, but they came out with I forgot what it's called, DLP.
mm.
I forget because I haven't done it in a while, but I bought a resin based printer, and that stuff, like, it's leaps and bounds based on the stuff I used to use when I got my FDM printer. I got that one around 2013.
Okay. So I guess when you're not animating, you're 3D printing. I'm assuming then, right?
Yeah, I'm 3D printing, or I'll mess around and work on traditional based animation using a free software. It's by Studio Ghibli. They made it available to everybody, called OpenTunes.
Right, right, right. Yeah, and that's something I mentioned that I want to kind of learn too. So I need to I
Yeah.
need to jump on some of that stuff. But jumping back to the 3D printing part, what is some of the stuff that you do as far as 3D printing? Because I am like so curious about that I'm kind of like trying to understand it. But like, well, first, my first question is, what are you using it for? And second, can you make money off of that? As far as like, because I'm thinking, oh, you could build anything and then just sell it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. I use 3D printing for, because, like you said, I was learning, the 3D printing, how to do it, and I was trying to make money out of it, and I tried making things here and there. You know, I made a at the time, I forget, one of the Batman films with Christian Bale, where he had the tumbler and it shot out, a chunk of it shot out. So I made a Lego version of that, my own version of the Lego Batman. Let's say if Lego Batman released that, I mean, Lego came out with their own version, but I came out with my,
Yeah.
like your underground version. So I came out with an underground version of that, and I 3D printed it. It worked. It worked pretty well, but it didn't function as great as the Lego parts. I mean, the plastic I was using used ABS, but since it's layer based and they go layer by layer, it didn't have that strength and to grip onto the parts, because when you injection mold stuff, they make stuff at such a tiny level where it's fabricated, designed to hold certain grips and whatnot. But with 3D printing, you can't go past a certain amount. Like, there's a threshold that you can't go any smaller. So it was struggling with that part. But other than that, it worked out pretty well. But my niche was, I was getting into. I don't know if you remember, but they used to sell muscle figures, and in Japan they call keshi. But in Japan they made keshi out of rubber,
Right. Right.
rubber eraser. So I just took the name and made, small versions of Keshi figures, and there's a market out there. It's an underground market where people, especially Instagram, where there's a following out there. So I started working on small um, batches of characters based on NES characters from the 8-bit days,
Oh, nice.
TurboGrafx 16, PC Engine, Sega, Super Nintendo,
Oh, hell yeah.
Street Fighter. So I started making little sets of that, even Castlevania, the 8-bit version. And the most recent one I made a couple years back was the I mixed up the Alien franchise with the Predator.
Oh man.
So you have the Prometheus
you're,
the Prometheus movie with
dude.
the
You're
aliens.
hitting all the home spots right now, man. You're like you're going back to my childhood.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A good seller that I had was the Thundercats, the 1980s version.
Yeah, yeah, that's way back for me, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I made a version of that, but when I was a kid, I used to have this little set called a slime pit. So, you know, I made a 3D version, a 3D printed version, smaller, but not exactly to that scale. So, you could buy the Keshi figure, you could lock them in and put slime on it, and it just pours down.
Nice. What was
Yeah. So
what was the Prometheus that you mentioned? What was that about?
Prometheus, Ridley Scott, he came out with
Yeah,
supposedly a prequel to
right, right,
Aliens,
right.
how they
But
came
did
about.
you do something with that?
Yeah, the engineers, they called them
Oh,
the
right, right.
engineers.
Yeah, yeah.
I made a Keshi version of them, and I made a Keshi version of that alien. I don't want to spoil the movie for people if they haven't seen it, but
Oh, yeah. It's
um,
I think we've all seen it. I know. I mean,
yeah,
I own it. So, but
yeah, me too. So there's an alien that comes out at the end,
yeah,
the first
right.
xenomorph. So I made that one. I made the engineer, and I made a predator.
Sick.
So I made like a small, the characters are teeny. They're like 3 inches tall, and but I sculpted them and I detailed them, and I had them 3D printed. And I used to work with this guy a while back, where I would send those figures out to him, and he would cast them because he had the machinery. Because I mean, casting figures is a whole other
What
animal. You got to learn how to.
can you? What does casting mean?
So I would make the prototype. I would 3D print the prototype, and I'd send those. I ship them and mail it to that guy. Um, and he would take the resin pieces, and he would make a mold out
Right.
of
Okay.
them.
Yeah. Molding. That's the word I was looking for. Molding. Okay.
He'll make a mold, and I would ask him, hey, I want a version of he would cast versions of flesh. It would look like the muscle figures from back then, the
Yeah.
80s. So it looked fleshy, but it was plastic. But I also said, hey, for my own private collection, if you could do the same thing but with rubber. So all the figures that I made and I would sell, I have my own version in house where they're all fleshy, rubbery creatures. So I have the Thundercats, I have the Castlevania, I have several sets, but all in rubber.
That's dope, man. Hey,
Yeah, those are harder to make.
for the audience, we're gonna need some still pictures for the of those Keshi figures. That's for sure. At least for me, I want to see them.
Absolutely, yeah. I have to dig into my Instagram, but yeah, I made tons of those, and I was gonna use the technology. I didn't get to use it for some vendors, but I was gonna use it as a way to advertise for them. So, it was underground stuff. So these guys would make their own packaging. So we would make our own flyers and ads. So based on that, you purchase a copy, and you'd be able to download an Android app, and hover your phone, open the app, download the app, hover over it, and you'd have your Keshi that you bought your set, but animated in 3D. So you just put the pic the advertisement or the packaging, you hover over it, and it'll pop up your character that you bought, and they'd be like, it would be like an idle animation of the character just still moving around, getting ready to battle or something.
Right, right, right. All right, Oscar, I got a question for you then.
Sure.
So, I mean, if for the audience, I'm a big Batman fan. If you guys didn't know, Oscar,
Me too.
I
Me
think you're a
too.
Batman fan, right? Too. All right. So,
Yeah.
well, I just saw the new movie, The Batman. What on Saturday, Sunday?
That one I didn't get to see. I've been dying to see
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So, um, pretty much, I think it's the best one yet. But anyways,
Wow.
um, the Batmobile, this version, the new one, badass. I think it's now my favorite Batmobile. Not over the animated series, but as far as just like real, live action,
Yeah.
this one is the best one. Now, can you do that? Can you create a model of that with 3D printing?
Oh man. I forgot to tell you. I actually there was a time, I don't know if you've heard of NECA. The
Yes,
guy that
yes. I think
they were a branch of McFarlane.
was that. Do they have anything to do with Ninja Turtles?
Oh man, yeah, they do.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so these guys at NECA, they make. I mean, I remember being a kid back like in second, third grade. When they would have like Jason movies and Freddy Krueger. These guys are making those figures now.
Mm,
They're making those figures now look like the movie version, the counterpart. So long story short, they released anniversary night 1989 Keaton Batman, but at 7 inches, because at the time they were selling it at quarter scale. I think 13 inches. I never got. I lost that opportunity, but they were releasing that one, so I found out at that time Toys R Us in New York. The one in Times Square was around. So that's where they had the huge Toys R Us, the flagship.
right.
You go into the Jurassic Park monster dinosaur was there. So I got a hold of the Batman, the Blu-ray. So I'm like, man, at the same time, this company called Hot Toys, they released their version of Batman. So I'm like, damn, I bought the smaller version, but I would like the Batmobile. So I 3D printed my Batmobile,
Which one? The '89 version?
the
Okay.
1989. It has lights and everything.
Oh, so you got it like 3D printed out, like the way it
Yeah,
looks.
it took me like 3 to 4 months because I had to build the model first. I had to chop it up, and at that time, my printer wasn't able to have a huge build plate. It was like 4.5 by 4.5 in X, Y, and Z. So I had to literally chop my Batmobile in
In
like
segments.
75 parts, I think. Yeah.
Oh,
So I had to little by little piecemeal the whole part. So I 3D printed the bottom of the Batmobile, then the top portion, and everything had to be sliced accordingly, and they had to work. So my Batmobile, the top part opens up, so you could open it up, put Batman inside, seal it up,
nice.
and it has a light in the bottom. I wired up some lighting, and it uses a battery. Yeah, and it worked. I was gonna put sound in it, but by the time I realized I didn't have enough space when I was building it to put like a little motor, like a sound thing. I had it. I had pre-recorded the sound, the engine, and all that, but
Oh man,
I just never got
I
around to
gotta
it.
I gotta check that out, man. I have one here. I actually have a collection in my office here. Pretty much
Oh
a whole
wow,
bunch of Batmans in their boxes and stuff
I
like
gotta
that.
see that.
Yeah, I have a whole collection here. I have the Batmobile the animated series. It's pro
That's a nice one
Yeah,
too.
it's still in the box. But yeah, man, I'll show you. I'll show you my collection here. It's not like you probably have a bigger collection, but um,
Not really, not really. You probably have more because I just have the Michael Keaton Batman. I bought two of them. I made the Batmobile, and I like you said, I 3D printed in Keshi version the Batmobile, the Batwing as well.
yeah, I think like my collection, it's taken over by McFarlane. You know who that is?
Of course, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. So McFarlane has been taking my cash lately. But yeah, man. Wow. Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's something I really want to take a look at, and I'm just curious to see like if you could build a Batmobile, that's just like out of just 75 what pieces, and that's crazy, man. That's just insane.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. At the time, my next project was going to be the Batwing, but I never got around to it because how many rolls of plastic did I buy? I think I bought like 6 or 7 rolls
Wow.
of the plastic.
Interesting. Wow. That's I mean, I think it's a whole process, man. So that's something that's like I think you have to have patience for sure.
Yeah, you gotta have patience, and it's fun. So whatever your passion is, you'll take the time out to do it and learn it and research it. And it's crazy because you got movie companies using this technology now, and sometimes to speed things up.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's right, man. And kind of transitioning into kind of, you know, big movie uh projects and stuff like that. What's some of the stuff that you're working on as far as maybe um some like little scenes as far as using animation and kind of creating like little stories? Because I've seen something that you sent me a couple of days ago, and I thought that was pretty interesting, man. Because I mentioned I'm working on a film right now too, so I'm curious to see what you've been kind of working on as far as just kind of little passion projects as far as animation goes.
Oh, absolutely. A while back, I was working on a traditional animation based on my daughter's character. She had made a character, so we built like a whole world and story based on that.
Oh wow,
So
nice.
I started doing that, and then from there, I've always wanted to make children's books. So it's scaffolded. So now, at this very moment, I'm working on children's on a children's book, a picture book, like 32 pages. So I have five topics that I want to talk about. So I'm done with the writing of the first children's book, and right now I'm working on the cleaning up the storyboard portion of it. So there's a section where it's called pagination, where after you write the manuscript, that's when you create the pictures for each section of the book, and you put it in pages. So like page 6 will have this part of the image, page 7 will have that. So I'm doing that portion, and I literally just started doing the first two pages last night, and I'll be working on doing that and cleaning it up and creating the assets for that to have them printed in hardcover, PDF format, and paperback.
Yeah, that was my question. So is it okay? So you're gonna do a hardback and paperback? Wow, wow. Yeah,
Yeah, and I would like I'm planning to have a little bit of augmented reality in the books. So this will be the first, the first book to test it on. So you purchase the book. It'll say, "Hey, download this on Android." So you download it on Android, and it's a free app. And you hover over it. And I'm debating whether it should have 3D animation or continue having, or just use the art assets and create 2D animation for it. So I've been debating on doing that. I haven't figured out what I want to do.
that's very interesting because I was gonna the next question I was gonna ask you is as far as augmented reality, right? And that's something that you know a lot about, right? And I think we might have to save that for another podcast because that's a whole another topic, right?
Yeah, the augmented reality stuff is amazing too. It's like 3D printing. It's a whole other segment. It's a whole other facet.
Yeah, yeah. So with this book that you're creating, I'm assuming you created this whole world, right? That's something from that your daughter created, right? That she drew, and
Yeah, she drew one character, and from there just spiraled into this whole world.
that's awesome, man. I'm assuming you could probably make it into like a video, like an animated video on YouTube or something like that.
That's what I plan on doing. It's been taking me a while, but what I've been doing is I've been creating the world. I've been creating the background, the family. I got to go a little deeper into dealing with their personalities, but I have a good idea of how their personalities are. But if that, I'm not gonna wait for for Netflix to pick it up. I want to have it all in house, so I'll be able to release that as I need to on my own, and profit from it as well, from both the books, the animations and whatnot.
Wow. I mean, that's something that's like that's as far as like an artist, right? And your daughter is creating something like that's like the perfect scenario, man. I think that's dope.
Thanks. Yeah, because it'll be nice to let people know, hey, this was an in-house thing. It wasn't anything from like Netflix. It wasn't anything from Barnes and Noble. It's a regular guy who does 3D, and it can happen. You could do it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And just for some of the audience and somebody that's probably trying to dive into animation or whatnot, what's like something that you could probably recommend that they could get started with?
Um, One thing I can tell people is if you really want to get into animation, depending on what you get into, what you want to get into, if you want to like be the person that makes the characters move, learn 2D animation, learn the 12 principles of animation, because that's used in 3D, and it helps speed up the process, and you get a good understanding Another thing is, do life drawing if you can, or if not, draw from real life people. Or,
Do you feel like what if like you suck at drawing? You can like are you still kind of I mean obviously if you're good at drawing that's kind of like you're kind of like a step ahead, but if you're not good at drawing is that something that will kind of be more difficult or just it doesn't really matter?
Not really, because drawing is a skill. Like, you learn that as you go, and you could draw, like, start off in a year and you draw like a face, and it'll be terrible the first year, but if you keep at it, 2 3 years later, you look at your progress, and you can grow and you can learn it pretty well. But there's people out there that they're not good artists in the sense where they can draft or draw or sketch a person, but they're really good at sculpting, or texturing or whatever it may be. Especially now these days, the whole industry changed. It got flipped upside down with these new packages coming out, um, to create 3D assets and texturing and rendering.
Yeah, you're right, man. You're right, and that's something that's like a interesting question, right? As far as nature versus nurture, right? Like
Yep,
are you born with it or is it a skill you learn, right? So it's kind of like it's a kind of both side argument, but definitely practice makes perfect, right? So um,
yep,
but yeah, Oscar, hey man, I think we gotta dive into a couple other podcasts and talk about 3D printing and augmented reality and all that stuff. I think that's something I really want to talk about in the future, man.
we do, definitely, we do.
And for anybody that wants to kind of check your workout, where can they go and check it out, Oscar?
Yeah, it's oscartorres9.wixsite.com. I can send the link if you want.
We will have that. We will have that in the show notes for the audience. Perfect.
That's where you can check out most of my work, and I have an Instagram page called Creature Factory as well. I haven't done a lot of the 3D artwork lately, but I have older posts that you can check out if you go past a certain section.
Nice, nice. Well, Oscar, thanks for stopping by the podcast, man. I think definitely kind of very ambitious that that you're working on so many projects, and some of the stuff that you mentioned really kind of sparked, at least for me, some ideas in the future. So thank you, and we'll talk soon, Oscar.
Absolutely. Thank you so
All
much.
right, peace out.
Peace out.
Would you like to be on the podcast? Got something to talk about? Make sure to head over to the website at hardwoodrod.com. Leave your name and the topic you'd like to discuss, and I'll add you to the calendar.